Everyone, it is Noble here again. Just right now, I'm just making a video here on how you can be better at Helldivers and what you can be doing to help you extract emissions, just have a better understanding. So this is mainly for the newer players here, but let's get into it. So a big part of really getting better at it and just being able to complete missions more effectively and just being able to work better in a team really just comes down to the beginning part of it comes down to your armor loadouts and just weapon loadouts in general. So when you're picking your weapons, it's important to keep in mind which faction you're fighting. And that's really the biggest thing. I mean, of course, you'll be better with some weapons and worse with others, just kind of depending on what you're comfortable with and what you typically go for when you play other shooters as well, because their guns kind of play similarly to other games as well. And that can be actually seen quite well with how all my guns are leveled up. So I have a bunch of weird stuff that is all the way up. So we have stuff like the Liberator Penetrator, the Pacifier for some unknown reason. We got the 1-2, the Coyote, the Adjudicator, the Tenderizer. And you can see I typically stray away from these, and I don't do too much with SMG. Well, actually, I have quite a few with SMGs, so I can't see that. I typically stay away from shotguns. I do a load explosive, I do some energy, and I do some of the special weapons. What this is helping show is that I've been able to find out what works best for me, and that's a big part of just being able to go through the missions and be able to do them successfully, is finding which weapons are going to work best for you. And with that, it's almost best to give each gun a shot and kind of see how you do with it, rather than kind of just picking one like, oh, I'm going to suffer with this until I get it. You don't have to do that to yourself, especially with how many you get in this game. There's just an obscene amount. So it's better for you to mess around and kind of pick and choose what you want. And that, of course, depends completely on your play style. For me, I personally like to do heavy and light loadouts the most. So I'm taking stuff like the Dominator. I'll take the Flamethrower for the bugs. I'm taking, weird. I'll take this one out a bunch as well. It doesn't show the number here because it's a special weapon. But I would probably have this thing up to at least like level 15 at this point with how much I've used it. You can see I use the Slugger the most out of all these shotguns at this point. This kind of goes to show that I'm not much into shotguns. And of course we have the SMGs, and then we have the marksman rifles, which just helping to illustrate how much I don't go towards those, because like for my play style, I'm typically finding I'm needing fire rate. I'm needing more rounds down range than I can get out with these lower fire weapons. Of course, I have stuff like this. I have the Slugger and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean anything. Well, I mean, it does mean stuff. But it's best illustrated here, where we have the Tenderizer and the Liberator Penetrator being the only two weapons I have maxed out, getting to a level, 98? 97. So it's important that you, as a player, are able to find your niches as well. So don't feel like you have to stay and be faithful and play the Liberator or play any specific weapons till you max it out or anything like that. You have to be willing to try out the other stuff and figure out what's going to work best for you. And that goes with the secondaries and throwables as well. We'll get into throwables next, but the secondaries is also fairly important, although not as much. I don't find myself using them as much, but it's good just to pick a nice reliable secondary for you. So either that means you're getting a reliable pistol that either does good damage, has high fire rate, as is the case of these ones here, has a gimmick, or is just an absolute beast. This one here is a really good pistol. I would suggest it. Same with the Verdict. These here are probably the two of the best pistols in the game. Especially since this one here, you can get one-shot the Hulks if you shoot them in the face in the right spot. And Verdict also being the only... Okay, well, this says medium pen as well, but this one here is kind of finicky to try and use. I would much rather prefer the Verdict. It is medium pen. You get good damage with it. You have a decent amount of ammo with it as well. So my opinion, these two are both really going to have, but what I do should dictate what you do. I know people who will take this out instead, or they'll take this, where they main one of these twos instead. And it's only because that's what works best for them. So once that comes back down to what works best for you, what you want out of your weapons. And that includes all of these ones as well. You got the melee weapons, and then you have the specials. I'll main this one, and the stun lance, and the machete. These are the ones I main the most out of these two sections here, simply because I main this one here when I'm working as a support guy. So I'll do that, so I use that into my playstyle. I'll use the talent for when I need to hold on to my ammo and I don't want to worry about it, so I'll bring that so I don't have to worry about it. And then you can bring the ultimatum as a gimmick gun. What I mean by that is you only get like 2 shots, and then you use it, and it'll one-shot basically anything and everything, unless it's like one of the quote-unquote bosses. But it'll one-shot a War Strider, it'll one-shot, pretty sure, the Flesh Mobs, Wild Titans, all of those stuff. This thing here will kill everything, basically. Nothing else in the entire, in this entire section can do that. Of course, there's stuff that can do that, but it's not really like that. So that also comes back down to what you prefer. You can bring this as a one-shot or as a, oh crap, I need to run. And then you can use that in your playstyle as well. So it's really, there's a really good variety of different things you can be using here, all of which can be combined to make a really strong loadout. Or if you're just shoving stuff together, it can make a really bad loadout. You can main melee, but maining melee can be difficult if you don't know what you're doing. I'm not saying you shouldn't try it. You should, of course, try it. Everyone should try melee, a melee build, because it's super fun. And then going to the throwables. This is a very important section. This here's the section that almost matters the most. Because some of these will determine whether or not you're effective in the team or not. So all the ones that make you effective is going to be all of these ones, the standard throwables, the impact, the incendiary impact, and the thermite. These, goddammit, these are all the ones that make you still perfectly effective in your role. Because all of these ones here can be used to kill anything. They can still be used to go after ships, factories, or the bug holes. While the gas, the stun, and the smoke and the seeker, they have their places, but you can't go after those strategic points with them because they don't do much damage. And this one here will only go after targets. This one here it's like electricity, if I understand it correctly. I think that's what it is, but it might just be like a flash, and it's just like a flashbang. I never used it because I don't want to be that guy. I much rather use this over this sort of thing. And you have smoke. Smoke has its place. I've been using smoke a bunch with the bots lately, and it's been super helpful and been a super good thing for the team. But it comes down to you can't kill anything with it. This you can kill stuff with it, but it just takes a while. And of course, then you have something like the thermite, which is kind of riding the line between the effective throwables and the ineffective throwables. Because if you miss, it doesn't explode. It just heats up. But if you stick it onto a hull or a war strider or a factory strider or a factory or a ship or a bug hole, it will destroy it. It might not destroy a factory strider or a war strider, but it will definitely kill a Hulk, chargers, impalers with one of them. I'm pretty sure it's almost always one hit with it, and then they'll just go down because they'll just burn straight through them, sort of thing. So this one is really good if you use it correctly. If you can hit your shots with it, then it's super good. And of course, you have the gimmicky ones, which you can bring for whatever other reason. If you have someone else who's maining and mostly going after those, or you bring a stratagem that can do that instead, then you can bring these as well, but I would highly suggest kind of avoiding these so you can still play with them, still use them. There's some really good ones here, especially the Seeker. Seeker's super fun because they'll pop up and they'll go and seek out a target. But it's just important to understand, all of Helldivers is based on working in a team. Sure, you can do missions solo, you can go out solo, but a big aspect of Helldivers is the teamwork aspect of it. And it's important to understand that, because there's oftentimes when you're going to get separated and you're not going to have your team and you're going to have to be able to function by yourself. It's important to be able to do both sides of that, though. To be able to work with your team as a coordinated force and just wipe the map clean, while also still being able to work by yourself and being able to function by yourself. Now, if you're just a lone wolf and you just screw your team over and you ditch them, that's not being a team player. You're immediately screwing over your team, especially when they get into bot drops, or you call in a bot drop and you ditch it so you can go and do your objectives and it gets ditched on your team. You're being a really crappy team player. Like, no one wants that. No one wants to deal with the bot drop you left, or the bug hole you left, and or anything like that, right? So it's important that that aspect is understood. That as soon as you're able to function with everyone else effectively, you're immediately going to have a so much easier time going through missions. Like I'll hop into a mission where there's just two people and they're struggling, and then I have to come in, I have to swoop in, I have to do my best to help support them. It doesn't matter if there's other objectives going on, but if they're being absolutely slammed by Bile Titans or Factory Striders or War Striders, and I come down mid-mission, I'm not going to bugger off and leave them there to die, just to go complete the main mission so I can say I did it, what were you guys doing, sort of thing. That's not good teamwork. So it's important to understand there is a bit of a fine line there, that you want to be as much of a team player as you can. That's incredibly important for this game, because that's going to make it so you're more effective. But it's also important to understand that if you only rely on your team, you're not going to do successful when you get cut off, or your entire team dies and you're not able to call them back in, or you're the last guy alive. So you need to be able to find the happy medium between both those, for all your stratagems, for your weapons, and for your armaments, your ordnance, like the throwables here. As long as you can find the happy medium for all of that, you'll be able to just go through missions with ease, with like no issue whatsoever. While we're here, we're just going to go into the armors. So for all of this stuff here, the only one that matters is this part here. The helmet will have no effect on what the armor does, and the same goes with the cape. These are mostly just cosmetic things. But when it comes to armor, it's important you're also, once again, picking what works best for you, and to understand the armor passive that comes with it. And it's also really good to pair your armor with what weapon you're using. If you're using a light weapon, it might be better to pick a lighter loadout so you can kind of keep up with the mobility of said weapon. You can kind of run around and ride and gun sort of thing. Or if you're picking a heavy weapon like the Dominator, you kind of go in with a medium or a heavy armor. So these ones here. I'm not going to go into what each armor passive is, just because there's so bloody many of them. I mean, I can click through here and you can pause and look at them. For the most part, it doesn't really matter what the passive is. I mean, as long as you're able to find an armor that works best for you with the loadout you're using against the faction you're fighting, that's kind of what matters. You'll have people who you'll see bitching on like Facebook or something because you're on a fire planet and you're not using a fire dedicated armor. Like when we're doing the Fury and the K and I think it's the Moz planets, what the hell they're called. I haven't really been using, like I've been using this one here, which gives you 4% resistance to fire, acid, gas, and whatnot, as well as decreasing throw range. I've been primarily maining the Bloodhound, which is the higher armor and the scans, the 2.2 seconds. So even though the environment dictates I should be using something like this, or I should be using something like the Salamander, which gives me 75% damage resistance to fire, that's not necessary. As long as you're able to find a passive that works for you, for the faction that you're fighting for, or you can just use one loadout for all factions. Like I'll use this one here for every faction even. These are basically the exact same. They are the exact same. So I'll use this armor, or I'll use this armor for every faction because it works for every faction. But again, any armor can work for any faction. All that matters is that you're able to figure out which armor set is going to work best for you in the situations you're going to find yourself in. And it's also important to kind of just get a feel for them. like if you find you're constantly being damaged and you're constantly trying to look out for stims and stuff like that when you're first playing out, you'll probably better pick something like the Bone Snapper or the Alpha Commander to get those extra stims, so you're able to keep yourself in the match and continue being effective with your team. Or you can go stuff like up here. I'll use this armor here, which then gives me +2 throwables, which is super helpful, especially when you're at higher levels, although it does less armor. But armor isn't always everything. If you're able to, for the most part, not get hit and just be able to zip through and toss grenades into all the factories and whatnot, then it doesn't really matter if you have armor. So yeah, this is just like everything else. Just figure out which armor set what's going to work best for you, which ones you're comfortable with, and just in general figuring out what's going to work best for you in the situation you find yourself in. Going from armors to stratagems here. So for stratagems, I have all of them. So I've played with literally every single one of these at least once, sort of thing. So I can tell you from experience, it's a really good idea to try out every single one. Even if it's auto cam where it's like, oh, you need a teammate to load you. For all these team load weapons, you can do them solo as well. It's just better with a teammate. And you're going to find that very rarely someone actually going to come up and help you reload unless you're in like a call with someone or you have your buddy doing it for you. You can actually communicate that. If you can't, then odds are no one else is going to do that for you. Once again, like you can use basically any of these, any faction. It's just important to understand what they do and how effective they are against the faction you're fighting. Yeah. Also, when it comes to these weapons here, the ones that you carry, it's good to choose the ones that you're gonna do best with. Whether that means you're just going for another machine gun, heavy machine gun, or an autocannon, or just sticking with the trusty old expendable anti-tank or the recoilless, it's important to pick the stuff that you're not necessarily most used to, but the stuff that you feel is going to be most effective against the faction you're fighting. So like I said, any of these can technically work for any faction. However, you're not going to want to use the spear really against, let's say, the Illuminant, simply because they don't have enough heavy enemies that you're going to end up using it maybe like 3 times if you're in lower levels. Higher levels, maybe, but even then you're going to waste the first spear trying to take out the shield of the Harvester, and then you're going to use a second spear to maybe kill it. Same goes with, well, the Wasp is almost better at that point when it comes to these two. Or you'll have stuff like the Flamethrower. You're not going to really want to use the Flamethrower against the bots, although you can. It can be really good against them. However, you're going to find you're going to have a difficult time trying to even get up to them. It could just end up being a waste. Same goes with Orbitals and Eagles. Like I have times where I'll build a loadout of my stratagems, and I'll only end up with 3 that I use the entire time, and I'll just leave 1 that I don't use. So the next time I'm going to swap that out for something else I will use. So I was doing the 500 and the Eagle Smoke. I was finding I was using the Smoke almost more. So I swapped out the 500 for a machine gun turret. And then I found myself using all my stuff then. So if you're having that where you're finding that you're only using half of your stuff, then maybe it's time to swap out stuff and try and put new stuff in. So you can kind of not have it wasted. You don't want the slot wasted, even if you're bringing stuff for someone else to use instead. Like if you're bringing the execute, you're not going to use the execute, but you're going to bring it so you can pop it down in case of an emergency sort of thing. That also works. And of course, understanding each stratagem is also important. So understanding that these sentries or the mines are really good in really close scenarios, or when you're in city environments or doing a defend mission. But as soon as you get into these really open spots, they kind of lose their potency with how open it ends up being, right? So at that point, it's almost better to bring something else. Maybe you bring a turret or the shield generator, which I wouldn't bring the shield generator. That shield generator is like worthless, but that's my opinion. If the shield generator works for you, use it. I can go into entire video going over what every single one of these does and what you can expect from each one. I might do that in the next couple days here and just kind of go over all of them because there is so many. I can also do that for the armor pass as well. You leave a comment which one you want first, or I'll just pick one if no one says anything. But yeah, like picking all your weapons, your armor, your stratagems, all kind of works together into rounding out how well you're doing in your missions. And if you're able to pick the ones that work best for you and you're the most effective with, you're gonna find you're gonna start doing a lot better. And if you're able to mix those with your teammates, so instead of everyone bringing the same guard dog, maybe you see everyone else using the Liberator guard dog, you bring the laser one or the flame one or the gas one or something like that. You kind of have the variety. You kind of work with that mix and match, kind of integrate with your team, with your stratagems. You can become an even more effective team, if it makes sense, rather than always having like the same stuff. But of course, if it works for you and you don't want to change it, that's also fine. A lot of Helldivers, since there's so many options, is just picking what's going to work best for you. So it's really important to get outside of your comfort zone and try each and every single one if you can, or if you find one you like right off the bat, then just use it, work with it. But there's no harm in trying out all the different loadouts and different setups you can have. Like Lord knows I have like 20 loadouts I have saved. Not saved, I have pictures of, so I can always go back to them from like when I first started, because I have ones where I'm like, ooh, this really works. I'm going to save that. I'm going to use it later. So you can do that, and then you can just keep playing around with stuff. Let's see what else I got here for stuff to talk about. When you're throwing stuff. So when you're throwing stuff, you're going to notice that it's only going to go so far, and that goes with grenades or stratagems. And of course, if you have the throwing for further grenades, then that is going to, I believe, increase the distance your strats throw as well. But you can increase that by leaping at the same time. So if you're on a computer, you do, I believe it's Alt, and then that will, if you throw it while you're leaping, it's gonna you're basically gonna catapult it. So that alone can help out a lot, especially if you're in a pickle and you just want to get it out there. You have, let's say, I don't know, a bile spewer that's just lobbing acid onto your team. You can, and if they're really far out, you can leap throw a stratagem or a grenade onto them to kind of get them to stop for a moment or just eliminate them. So that can come in really handy. Let's see here. So we have that, and that. Okay. Another big thing is just understanding what each faction is like, what each faction has. Like as you play, you'll figure out that the Illuminate are the bots are the most heavily armored out of all the factions, but they're also the ones with the most obvious weak points. You'll notice that all the Devastators, if you hit them in the face, they'll go down one tap if you hit it clean. The Hulks almost always have a back you can hit, not even with a stratagem. You can hit it with your main primary, and you can just hammer it out. If you break it, they'll die in 10 or so seconds, if not immediately, give or take. But then when you go over to the bugs, you'll notice that they're mostly small, light enemies at first, and then of course as you go higher up, they'll have more heavy enemies, but they don't have as obvious weak spots. So at that point, you have to get away from going for weak spots and go more towards just generally just plowing through them, just full on pummeling them into the ground sort of thing. They do still have weak spots, like Charger, you hit them in the face if you can do that nicely. You can hit them in the butt. Bile Titan, you hit the sack underneath their tail, they won't be able to spit bile. You hit them in the face, they'll die instantly, depending on what weapon you hit them with, whether it's an AT or a Quasar shot. Be it nice, they'll die in one shot. I forgot what they're called. Doesn't matter. The point is that they still have weak spots, they're just not as obvious. And same goes with Illuminate. Illuminate are super heavily invested into light enemies, but they have medium enemies that sort of support that. Not as much, to be fair, not as much. They are primarily the voteless. But all of the main Illuminate, the observers and the elevated observers and whatnot, and the harvesters and all of them are going to be a lot more difficult because you're going to bring in like, oh, there's going to be a lot of light guys. You're going to bring a stalwart, but then a stalwart's not going to be as effective against those guys. You can still kill them with it, just not as effective. So they kind of give you that false sense of security that you can go, you lay back a little bit, which you can technically, but you just have to keep that in mind that you're going to be going against lots of medium, moderate medium, and lots of really light targets. The light targets going to eat up all your ammo, then the mediums are going to come in and kick your butt. So you have to try and keep that in mind when you're building your loadout as well. As even when you start having the harvesters and the stingrays and whatnot, you have to keep that in mind as well, because the harvesters are going to eat up your ammo with your shield, and then you have to eat through more ammo to kill them. And you have the stingrays, which are going to sneak up on you and can only be damaged from medium and above pen. And they don't get down easily unless you hit them with like an AT or something like that. So I'm just trying to illustrate, it's important to keep in mind what each faction specializes the best at. Both the Illuminate and the Bug specialize in mob mentality, while the Illuminate kind of uses the mob mentality to weaken you and then come in for the kill. The Bugs are just all pummel you at once. Well, the bots are much more heavier armaments and heavier armor. They just wipe you out before you get a chance. That's sort of their doctrine. So if you can understand those and kind of use that to your advantage of understanding those and figuring out which guns are going to work best for each of those different play types, you're going to find yourself doing a lot better. A good thing to do is to try doing solo missions. Don't just keep doing missions with people, because like I said, if you're just constantly relying on them, you're not going to do as well. I mean, same can be said with any multiplayer game. Just don't fully rely on your team. In Helldivers, you want to rely on your team when you're in a team, but when you go solo, it helps you kind of get a better understanding of your equipment as well as the enemies, because now all of a sudden they're not all being killed by your teammates. You're having to do all the work by yourself, so it lets you get a better understanding of how it's all going to go down. Yeah, I feel like that makes sense. And the final thing is be prepared to die a lot. Like, I can show you how many times I've died. But let's see here. It's gonna tell me enemy kills terminated automated friendly fire. Oh. So this is what I mean. So you're gonna die a lot to your teammates and to the enemies. So I've died 1,504 times. That's both dying to my allies and to the enemies we were fighting. So even though I'm pretty decent at this game, it's still important to understand that almost every match you're going to die at least once. Whether that's to to the environment, to an enemy, or to an ally due to a stratagem or just an accidental headshot or something like that. It's important just to accept that, because unlike games like Tarkov, this game is very forgiving when you die. Because you don't lose anything out of it. I mean, you might lose your extra weapons or your samples or something like that, but if you play the game like you don't want to die constantly rather than taking those risks, it's not going, well, for me personally, it's not going to be as fun. Of course, not dying is obviously a good goal, but to have that sort of, I guess, loot fear, which I know it's much more real in games like Tarkov, you're going to find you're not going to be doing as effective, especially as in a team role as well. Because now all of a sudden you're looking out more for yourself. You're not looking out for everyone else as well. You're going solely me. I have to keep myself alive. So by not accepting that you're going to die many, many, many times, you're holding yourself back. To just understand that things are going to happen, things out of your control, you're going to get absolutely slammed. Almost every match above level 4, you're going to get absolutely slammed every single time until you get to level 10, and even then, it gets worse. It just gets worse and worse and worse. So if you're constantly playing super careful, not killing anything, not doing anything because you don't want to go in because you might die, I mean, you're just going to end up doing worse. You're doing yourself a disservice. So if you can kind of get past that, kind of accept the fact that unfortunately things are going to happen, you're going to find yourself doing a lot better. Yeah, like the first time I played Helldivers, my first 2 deaths on the same match, I just played trying to be super careful, trying to do things by the book, by myself, without alerting anyone, trying to do it perfectly, and then it messed up. Then it went to shit, and then I died, and then I died, and then I died. But as soon as I got past the point of accepting that I'm not going to be able to do this how I want to, and I have to adapt, and I might die because of that, as soon as I got past that, I was able to get through the mission. It's kind of sad that I died like 4 times doing the very first mission, doing level 1 to the bots. I died that many times. It's just sad. And I do have it on my channel. It's the first Helldiver video. But if you can get past that point and just get over it, where you can be effective while still knowing that if you're not at the front being productive, it's not going to get done. Your missions aren't going to get done. Your team's going to suffer because of it. You're going to suffer because of it. So it's better to get above that and gain the experience and the practice from it rather than holding back. I know that's probably a massive ass ramble. I do apologize for that. I don't know how long I went on there on this single thing. Lord knows. But to me, it's important that that gets across. I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I'm just going to keep going down this rabbit hole, constantly saying the same stuff over and over again because that's how my brain works. But just like War Thunder, getting better at Helldivers and being able to get through your missions better and better comes with practice, comes with time. Typically around when you reach level 15, you'll end up having a pretty good understanding. And if you don't yet, you just need a little bit more practice, and that's okay. Everyone has their things that need to work out. But outside of the armor layouts, outside of the gun layouts, and outside of the stratagems and how to choose those, and being able to just play around with everything and pick what's going to work best for you. I know it's like really shitty advice. Oh, just pick what's going to work for you. It's just the truth, unfortunately. Because if you just need to play around and try everything out until you figure out what works for you. Lord knows I spent my fair amount of time doing that, being useless on a team because I picked a gun that wasn't going to work, and I had to switch it immediately as soon as I could. But that comes with it. In due time, with enough practice and enough experience, you can end up being able to do those level 10 missions or any mission solo in due time. It just takes practice and hard work and a understanding of the objectives and the targets that you're going against, as well as your loadouts. Apart from that, that's just it. There's no apart from that. That is how you get better at Helldivers. Unfortunately, it just comes down to practice and playing around until you find what works. I hope this was some form of informative and helpful. I could help more probably in person. I do have my Discord channel up now. I'll leave a link for it in the comments. Feel free to join. Feel free to come chat. I can try and help out more then if you are struggling. Take you in a couple matches and I'll show you what I do. But hope you enjoyed. Hope this was helpful. If you have anything you want to comment or say, feel free to leave it in the comments and I'll be happy to answer or talk about it. Have a good day.